Today we're joined by attorney Amanda Carpo. She is the president of Kittelson Carpo and also a part of KMC Solutions. She is a specialist in company and corporations and all structuring needs. So she can help you with business advice when entering into the Philippines if appropriate.
I'm Amanda Carpo. I'm an attorney and I'm the president of Kittelson Carpo Consulting. We assist foreign companies doing business in the Philippines. Well, the first would be hire the right professional, and I say that in a non-biased way. Hire the right attorney, hire the right consultants to assist you, and get a lot of the information ahead of time. It is a complicated process. It's very document-based, so it's necessary to kind of know that it's a little bit more burdensome documentary-wise than in other countries. Let's say ease of doing business in other countries like Hong Kong or Singapore, you can get your company done in a day or two or something like that. Here it's 4 to 8 weeks probably, and there's a number of government offices that you will need to register. So it's like doing any business, you need to do your research. So that will include the different compliance requirements for any business. And I assume that it's just, I think in terms of that, it's just as difficult in this country as it is in any country. So it's not just one registration. You have to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission, you have to register with the local government, get your mayor's permit and your business permit. You have to, if you have employees, you need to register with the Social Security, Pag-ibig and the Philippine health system, etc. You need to get all that done. And the third thing is it's important to also have contacts here in the Philippines, because if you're setting up a business, definitely in the Philippines, connections matter. And I'm sure that's true anywhere in the world, but with the right connections here in the Philippines, that it makes sense. Just to get somebody to let you know, for example, what an ideal space is, or the ideal space to locate your office, for example. Because, you know, really, if you don't know your lay of the land here, you can't just pick anywhere in the Philippines. Like randomly. So you need to be maybe in the city center or maybe in a more urban area. And if you're looking for high quality employees, you want to be somewhere where there's a university nearby, that kind of thing. So when I say that you need connections, it's just because because information is key in being able to make decisions for your business. There's two kinds of registration in the Philippines. It's you either register as a domestic corporation or you register as a branch. So if you register as a branch, there are no directors there, but you do need to appoint a resident agent. And then the reason for that is that the resident agent basically gives the Philippine government some jurisdiction over you. So if there's any service of summons or the corporation needs to be contacted, it will be through that resident agent. So you still do need a person on the ground to do that. Branch registration is a little more complicated. It's always 100% foreign owned when it's a branch. So you can be a fully owned foreign branch in the Philippines as long as you are not engaging in an activity that's on the foreign investment negative list. So typically that's utilities, land holding, mass communication, advertising, those types of activities. If you're going to set up a domestic corporation, yes, you do need to have a board of directors. Majority of them do have to be Philippine resident, but you can have nominee directors as well. And you can be fully foreign owned as long as you are not as long as you're not engaging in a business that's in the foreign investment negative list, with which you'd have to, for different businesses, there are different equity requirements. So you'd need equity if you were 60-40 equity typically, if you were engaged in like a public utility, or if you wanted to own land in the Philippines. The other restriction would be a capital requirement. So foreign companies in the Philippines doing business generally have to invest $200,000. That's the company's money, but they need to see it paid up in the bank. The reason for that is so that that's the amount that the legislators feel is feasible for a company to succeed in the Philippines. You know, that's to pay your rent, etc. But they need to see, SEC needs proof of that if you're doing business in the Philippines. That's for foreign companies who are defined as domestic market enterprises. There is an exception to that. If you are engaged in an export enterprise, if you're an export enterprise, then you are exempted from the $200,000 requirement, and your capitalization requirement will be 5,000 pesos, just like any other company that's setting up. But in that case, to be considered an export enterprise, at least 60% of your sales should be export sales, whether that's sales of services, as in the case with business process outsourcing or call centers, or in actual goods, meaning you physically export widgets outside of the Philippines and get paid in US dollars or foreign currency. It's done here. We handle the accounting and compliance requirements for our clients locally. However, there are companies here that do. I think one of the biggest business process outsourcing sectors is financial services. So there are several large companies here in the Philippines: JP Morgan Chase, Amex, DBS. There's several, HSBC. They all have service centers here, and they provide everything from like customer support to the actual financial services, which is why there is a huge market a job market here for CPAs. Yes, there are financial services, accounting outsourcing, if you will, and then legal process outsourcing. There are probably fewer than the accounting services, because I think different jurisdictions have different requirements. Obviously, if you were in the US, you'd want a US trained lawyer doing the processing. So there are several businesses here that do legal process outsourcing. I think it mostly has to do with like, what do you call it, when they're collating the evidence or they're some research. It's not just I guess transcription would probably be the entry point, and it's like documentation of evidence when it's like litigation, when they have to like compile. They do that here. Several companies, several large companies. The advantage of the Philippines is the cost of labor. So you have a large population between the ages of 18 and 34 here in the Philippines, college educated. I think it's like 98% literacy. So initially, you're correct, it was voice. And I think it still is voice that is the most sought after type of outsourcing. But there's more KPO or knowledge-based process outsourcing, such as legal, accounting, animation, more specialized services. So the challenge for the industry here, I'm seeing, is to sort of get the workforce up to snuff, like up to standard. So what happens frequently, because the level of education is better outside. Normally, when they come in and they hire they hire employees who have college degrees. Often they have to still train them with the work that they do or whatever it is. So yeah, there is a skills gap, but definitely the higher value services are increasing. I mean, they do everything here. Doctors, lawyers, accountants are outsourcing their work. They have to do their research, and I think there's definitely a value proposition for outsourcing, especially in the Philippines, and it's more prevalent here than they probably. I mean, when years ago, no one heard of the Philippines. Like maybe decades ago, it's like you couldn't find it on a map. But I think that the Philippines has definitely become a destination for outsourcing. It's important to know your lay of the land. It's important to do your research, to know the compliance requirements, et cetera. And there's a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of information on doing business in the Philippines. So I think that's my advice, is that, you know, research is probably the most important thing, and yeah, you definitely need some assistance in when you're actually going to pull the trigger and decide to do business in the Philippines. Yeah.